house.
Agreed. But are we going to go and look through the window, or are we going through the door?
The sun's still high in the sky. We've got time to do both.
Very true. All right, let's go. Let's go have some fun.
Cool. So, barring any other significant events, I think that we can fast forward again to the time for the tea party. I think that you guys probably go check in with Petrov and give him the information that, like, essentially, Farron, you've used up all your karma to set the Thieves Guild on this. So you'd have to regain karma or pay them for anything additional you needed them to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely a step in the right direction. Again, it's not a whole lot of information for them, so it's probably going to either take them a while or, maybe they don't find as much as they should have. But I'll determine that at a later date. So we fast forward to it's about time for the event. Farron, you've dressed in, probably like your nice clothes, right?
Yeah.
And you are going to escort the two ladies who look like good and proper ladies now. Their hair is all done, and they smell probably like faintly of lilacs. You find your head being weak when you are around them, Farron. Yeah, and I think that Petrov, probably like, you guys probably come down like or into like a common area, and you guys are the only ones in there, so it's not as awkward. But he probably like lines the three of you up against a wall, and Arkadiy's like walking back and forth, like scratching his chin as he like inspects all of you to make sure everything is in order. Do you guys, allow this to occur?
I think as he's walking forward, if I would stick out her heel to try to trip him.
Sure. You know what? I'll just go ahead and do this. Hold on.
Yes.
Let it happen. Let it happen.
Holy!
Oh man.
So yeah, instead of you tripping him, he probably like kneels down and like pulls up your leg and is like, "Ah, yes, good shoes. It is good," and like puts it back down. Right, and he like narrowly like he kind of goes to the side and he's like, "Oh yes, it's good, yes," and he continues his walk up and down inspecting the three of you, and he claps his hands together and he's like, "Okay, so here is location for a meeting. Remember, these are the people that will decide perhaps next Empress. It is very important we make good impression. Please do not try and strangle any of them. Farron, please do not try and sleep with all of them. Vi, please do not try and stab all of them. Please. It's very important."
Morella looks a little confused as he says strangle, and she's like, "Why would I strangle them?"
Morella, I'm going to admit something to you that perhaps you have never been told before. You have very big hot streak.
Excuse me?
You get very...
I think Vi takes a step away from Morella and Farron.
You
And
get-
them to just see.
Sometimes you get very angry at situations that are not outside of comfort zone.
I mean, perhaps, but
It's okay, you have plenty of training to fall back on. Just think about it.
she nods.
And yeah, I think Petrov, he hands you guys the note for where the location is, and he goes back to his table full of papers. And I think that him and Hannibal have probably been like, Hannibal's actually like probably down. They've been conversing back and forth kind of about things and stuff, and they seem to be forming a bond because if they don't show up, I can do that to their characters. Yeah, so the group of you, the three of you, head out. So Chester, you're kind of left like with nothing to do.
Son of a bitch, that's a bad thing.
Don't leave him to his own devices, please.
Chester? Hannibal and Petrov are kind of like embroiled in whatever paperwork crap they're going through. The two ladies and Farron are off to their meeting, and you're kind of just like awkwardly, sitting maybe in the bar with a drink and maybe some early evening snack or whatever.
I think I have to go out.
Sure.
I think I have to go out.
Yeah. So what is your where are you headed? Like, do you just need some air and you're just gonna go wander, or do you have a destination in mind?
I'm just gonna go and wander around town.
Cool. All right. Excellent. So we get over to right buddy system, except he doesn't have a buddy.
God damn it.
So let's jump back over to the two women ladies and Farron. So you guys are headed up to the headed up to the house, and I'll actually put it on the map. I'm running out of colors actually, but we've got.
Okay, you have the whole rainbow spectrum to choose from colors.
We haven't used purple yet, so we'll use
purple. Yeah.
That purple.
Purple for the Tea Party makes sense.
Yeah, it's right here. This complex right here. So surprisingly, it's actually not in the inside of the keep, right? I don't know what you intend, what you expected here, but you were told that Lady Appleton is going to be in attendance here. Tea Party. Cool. Let's make that a little bigger, I think. Maybe 32? Yeah, there we go. Tea Party. There we go. Boom. You were told, Marilla, and actually everybody was told, that Lady Appleton is going to be in attendance. It's kind of like her shindig, but the noble whose house you're en route to is actually probably Lord Sylar's estate. And Lord Sylar, Petrov probably did this in the briefing and let you know. Lord Sylar is deceased. His widow currently still lives in the estate. She's essentially the owner of all the holdings at this point. So it's a generally easy place for the noble women to kind of congregate and empower themselves with speech and drink and wine and sophistication, because that's what they do. And so Lady Sylar is kind of, she's elderly, maybe in her late 50s. And she is, she's kind of your typical, and Petrov probably warned you of this, so that's why I'm giving you this information. She's kind of rough. She can be, really opinionated, and, I'm trying to think of the words that an ambassador or politician would use.
Politically correct.
Yeah, she forms her own opinion about things, and it's very hard to change her mind. I think opinionated is the word I'm going with here. So, going into that situation is kind of probably interesting. But yeah, you guys arrive, and when you get to the door, a servant answers the door. And he actually looks at you, Farron, and he says, "Ah, yes, the entertainment. The entrance for you will be on the south side of the building. Ladies, if you'll follow me, I'll escort you to where you can place your belongings."
Morella smiles as he says this, and she looks at Vi, and she's like, "Well, let's go."
I think that Vi would give Farron a little wink because he has to go around back, and then say, "After you, my lady," to Marilla.
Yeah, and she kind of gives you a double nod response, and she starts walking in.
Yeah, cool. So you guys enter in, and there's a small closet or area where you can place, like, if you had cloaks or anything like that, where you could, you know, place them. And the building is quite large. It's probably the size of a tavern itself, but it's obviously only has, you know, houses a couple of people, the lady and her servants. And as you guys enter in, the butler, I'll just call him that from now on, the butler looks at you and he goes, "May I have your names for the announcement of your arrival?"
Marilla, like, is about to say something, and then she looks at Vi. Expecting something.
I think that Vi would say, well, it's customary for the lady to introduce her guests and kind of look at Marilla.
Right, yeah.
She nods and she says, I am Lady Morella Fairheart. You may address me as either Lady Morella, Lady Fairheart, or just Morella.
He nods and says, "Yes, my lady. And your guest?"
She starts like thinking of like nobles that she may have like met previously.
Sure.
And she's essentially just going to steal one of the noble names.
Okay.
And just totally bullshit it.
Yeah. And Vi, you allow that to occur, I assume.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Vi loved just watching Morella like kind of squirm to come up with a name.
Sure, yeah. So, like, there's probably that awkward moment, and this guy he's clearly, you know, he doesn't care.
He could care less, yeah,
right,
absolutely.
yeah. So you give him the name, probably, Ellie. Let's come up with a surname real quick.
Thorn?
Thorn, sure. Ellie Thorn. Sounds good. He says, "Very well, my ladies. Please stand here one moment while I announce your entrance." And he turns and walks to the entrance of the ballroom, basically. And he announces your arrival to the congregation. And you guys arrived kind of like right on time. So there's a few people that arrived early, and there's definitely people that are going to be arriving late, but you are kind of like the right on time crowd. Which
Vi hates that.
Right, yeah, immediately Vi's like, "God damn it, we showed up right on time." That's not what
God.
Right, yeah. Already a bad impression. But that's kind of like Morella's thing, right? Like, Morella would totally show up right on time. Yeah, and so I think that we hear him announce it to the congregation from the outside, from Farron's perspective. So Farron, you have to walk through the back gate and go to the servants' entrance, right? That's where your intended destination is. But
Yes.
it does give you like the opportunity to kind of scope out the place for a moment before you are embroiled in presentation, right?
Exactly.
So you walk through the gate that leads into the back, and it's all very well landscaped, and they have like a nice little like outside garden area. And when you get around to the back, I think that you see that like it's set up. There's like a few tables out there, and maybe some fixtures and stuff, and some torches, like standing torches, as you know, as if maybe the party will eventually spill out into the back courtyard area. And then you enter the servants' entrance, and the first thing that you're hit with is the smell of the food cooking. It smells delicious. Your mouth immediately starts to water as you enter into the kitchen area. And you can see that there's like maybe 2 or 3 cooks that are currently like, like they're dishing plates and like getting everything ready, and it's a scuffle in here, and nobody really notices you at all. They're all way too busy with what they're currently doing. So again, you're kind of left to your own devices, and you inspect the whole the kitchen, which is fairly lavish, definitely from a upper class lordly estate. So what do you do? Like, your intention is like, so you'll probably be directed or sought out at one point to perform, like probably for dinner or whatever, and then certainly after dinner. But prior to that, you kind of have, access to the servant areas. Walking out into the main halls and stuff would probably arouse like, "Hey, who are you? What are you doing here?" But you kind of have access to the estate a little bit. What would Farron do, understanding that you're here to kind of keep an eye on things, right?
Yeah. So I think I would obviously carefully look around the area, kind of
Sure.
see if there's a quick exit routes, just in case now that we've got assassins on our trails.
Right, yeah. There's also that added stress. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so knowing where the servant entrance is in the first place is probably a good step. And you know that there's at least like an exit that leads out into the courtyard, and then there's the main door. But there's also like servant hallways in this estate where they're kind of like in the walls a little bit that you could like go through, and it's so that servants can appear and disappear when they need to, and not be seen by the residents of the house, right?
Yeah.
And it's clearly like the building is very old. Not in the sense that it's like decaying in any way, but a lot of kind of practices that aren't in use anymore for newer construction buildings. And I think that you also pick up that, and I mean, this is easy, I think, for anyone that exists in the world. This building was probably originally dwarven construction, and then reconstructed to be slightly larger, for like human habitation. Because it's up in the noble rings, which were originally like dwarf constructed areas, and you probably notice that mostly in the kitchen as well, because there's like stone pillars that go up maybe like 6 to 8 feet, and then there's like wooden supports that are clearly newer that extended another like 3 feet or so.
Sure.
And it's kind of that aspect. So, you know, whatever you want to infer from that based on your player knowledge of how, quote, your own fantasy dwarves build buildings, you can gather that much.
Brilliant.
I'm telling you
All
to be
right.
creative. So you're just gonna like in general like go scope the place out, see where things are, see where the exits are, kind of the general case of the place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, so there's obviously not many like children, and a lot of the servants are somewhat elderly, so again they don't really pay attention, and yeah, you can totally just go through you get a good feel for the like the first floor and basement level, because there is a basement level as well, because it's kind of built up on a hill.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get a good feel for there is a second level to the location, but that would be kind of hard to get to. For you currently, so without being like noticed.
All right. I'll stick to where I'll
Cool.
Easily go.
Right. Awesome. So flashback inside to where Vi and Morella have been introduced, and as you enter into the ballroom area, you can see that there are a few tables kind of set up. They're kind of like high top tables, so they're not generally used for sitting. They're generally used for like standing at. And you can see they have like flowers and stuff on them. And you can see there are many women that are kind of littered throughout the ballroom. It's probably a fairly big room, maybe like between 20 and 30 feet. Yeah, and it's fairly large and kind of spread out, and there's maybe like there's probably like 7 women in there right now. And seated, actually, on like what could only be described as a throne at kind of the front of the ballroom is Lady Sylar. And she's very clearly like defined as being that. The rest of the women are of middle-aged, anywhere between their, early 30s to late 40s. So what do you guys do after you're introduced and the butler kind of like bows as he like walks backwards out and goes to run the door again? Everybody kind of like looked, obviously, and then like after you were announced, they kind of like, you definitely saw a couple of them like start talking to each other like pointedly in your direction, like, who's that? What are they doing here, kind of thing. But then there are some too that just like went back to drinking their wine and getting sloshed.
I think that Vi would turn to Morella and say, before we do anything else, we should probably go thank this lady. And she kind of looks at her ostentatious throne and says, thank her for inviting us to her lovely tea party.
Morella just simply nods, and she's like, yes, we should do that.
Cool. So you guys go up there, and you see Lady Sylar. She looks quite frail, but she has that kind of twinkle in her eye that lets you know that in her age, none of her intelligence has waned. And yeah, she kind of like looks you over and like squints a little bit and looks you over and, says, Lady Fairheart. Yes, I've heard about you. And
she bows politely.
And Lady Thorn, is it?
Yes, my lady.
I am not familiar with that surname. From where do you hail?
Altdorf, lady, but I am not surprised you have not heard.
I thought I knew everyone in Altdorf. I need to get out more.
Vi just smiles at her.
Sure, yeah, just a smile. She goes, well, welcome to this, whatever it is, using my home for some ridiculous party.
I think Vi would say ridiculous, my lady?
Well, yes, of course. You think this was my bad idea? No. When Lady Appleton asks you to use your venue, well, you can't rightly say no.
I think Vi kind of gives her a knowing kind of like, smile to try to be like, yeah, I get your drift. Like, this isn't your thing. I like you a little more.
Right, yeah. She's like, And, like, so one could assume that perhaps she has positioned herself in such a way to reinforce the fact that even though this is not her event, this is her place, right? Like, I own this. Like, you are here by my,
oh yeah, absolutely.
my charity, not necessarily because, I was told to do so or whatever. But yeah. Yeah. So then she says, well, enjoy yourself. Wine will be coming out shortly, I'm sure. Goodness knows I need another glass. And she picks up like a little bell, and she like jingles it like ding 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 ding, and you see a servant like come out of the like hallway, and with a tray full of wine to serve to all the women.
Yeah.
Vi takes one and hands the other one to Morella.
Okay.
Morella takes it and eats it hastily.
So just like downs it and puts it right back on the platter.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I think that that Lady Sylar, she notices this and she goes, don't go too quickly, my dear. There is a long night yet.
Do not mind me. I have quite an endurance.
Ah, it's good for a young woman, especially one aspiring to be as much as you are. And she gives like a wink, and you think it was supposed to be like kind of inconspicuous, but like it's very clear, like, yeah. Yeah. She just doesn't care because she's old and.
Yep. Merlo like just nods, and she's like, "Of course."
Yeah, and then she kind of like she disengages the conversation and just like kind of leans back in her throne and swills her wine and sips on it a little bit more. So what do you guys do? Do you guys, pursue the party in any
the
regard?
whole point is to make Morella friends, so we're gonna go make Morella some friends.
Right. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is.
And you'll notice that Morella is letting Vi lead her
Sure.
into this.
Sure.
And Vi willingly introduces her to every lovely lady in the ballroom, even though there's only 7 of them because we're freaking early.
Yeah, and I think that as you're doing that, the room begins to fill up a little bit. This event, from what you were told by Petrov, is not intended to be a big event. Perhaps 15 in total, or a little bit more, depending on who they bring with them. so it's not intended to be like a large like gathering of people, but it's just kind of intended to be a social kind of. There's no like agenda, there wasn't any like, hey, we're gonna hand out prizes or anything like that, right? It's just intended to be a social evening. So, where the heck is? There we go. That's what I wanted. Cool. So yeah, I think you're introduced to the varying range of ladies in attendance. All appear to be between minor and middling noble women. Some with at least some amount of power, and some that are simply just in the position because their husband is. That kind of deal. Some who take active roles, clearly, like, they start talking about, like, political stuff and how we can change things, and then some that are just like, I'm here to drink the free wine, and, basically that's it. So we don't need to go through, obviously, all of that, but how would, what is the general demeanor and approach of the two of you in there? What are you doing?
I feel like it takes the kind of guise of politician almost, right? Like trying to get Morella's name out there, trying to get these people to like her, which
Sure.
Vi is realizing is becoming a little difficult, I think, because I don't think that Morella has a ton in common with these people. So trying to find something for them to talk about other than, maybe some politics is a little bit challenging. So
yeah, you notice as conversations increase that Morella becomes more and more flustered over the course of this. Her words become more stammered, and she she blushes more and more as time goes on, essentially.
I think that after seeing this happen one or two times too many, I think that Vi would take Morella to quote unquote powder our noses.
Sure. And
go try to snap her out of it.
Yeah, so maybe maybe you guys go back out onto the back courtyard area.
Yeah, to get some air.
Yeah, to get some air, sure. So you guys go out back, and it's a pleasant night. It's a little bit humid because it is, like I said, in the middle of summer. But the sun is essentially set at this point, and so but the light still kind of is shining over everything. So you have this weird kind of orangish hue to the scene. And what do you say to her, Vi? What do you say to Morella?
I would probably just say, it's really okay. These women are just women, just like anybody else.
Yeah, and you see her maybe fanning herself with her hand for a bit, and then she's like, yes, I know, but gods, I'd rather fight that Hydra again than talk with them.
I mean, pretend that they're a Hydra.
I can't.
Really? I bet you can. Just treat them like you would any battle.
I can't.
You are Lady Morella Fairheart. You can do anything. Isn't that what I've been telling everybody all night?
She looks at you with a very serious face, and she's like, I cannot imagine them like a battle. They're all pretty.
Vigo's pretty awful, but sure. I mean, I get what you're saying.
She tries to go say something, and then it seems like she pulls it back, and she says nothing, and she kind of stands there awkwardly.
I guess Vi says, well, if you're not going to pretend that they're Hydra, just pretend that they're me. You talk to me fine.
Well, you're different.
Yeah, exactly. Am I really? I'm the same. The same as them.
She shakes her head, and she's like, no, you're You're special.
Vi laughs and she goes, I don't think I've ever been told that, Lady Morella.
She smiles and she's like, what does she say? You have a beauty that nobles can't compare with. And a complexion about you that you're very confident.
I think that when you say that, Vi kind of looks down, and I think for a split second you see like her very confident facade kind of break for a moment. And I think she says, we're not all really this confident. It's just the mask that you put on.
Yes, but you wear yours so perfectly.
Yes, well, unfortunately, it's from years of practice. Something that I can teach you in just a minute. And then I think that Vi kind of like comes close to her and kind of like taps her on the shoulder to kind of like get her to have better posture.
Sure,
to roll her shoulders back a little bit and to kind of stand taller.
You pull out your ruler and start slapping at certain locations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And kind of like get her to roll her shoulders back and just kind of like get her to cheer up, maybe get her another quick drink and just kind of like push her back into the room.
Take like 2 fingers and push the corners of her mouth up into a smile. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got you.
Exactly.
Cool. So I think that as you guys enter back in, it's just in time for the butler to come back into the room, and he goes, announcing the Lady Appleton, wife of Count Kingsley Appleton. And all the women like go silent, all their conversations die. And if they were sitting, they're now standing, except for distinctly Lady Sylar is still seated upon her throne. And
because she's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that the Lady Appleton enters, and she is what can only be described. She has can only be described as the most proper of all of you in the room. Her hair is pulled kind of like tightly back, with like a this kind of, not corsage because that's for your arm, but you know what I mean, like hairband, like kind of entwined with like these tiny little flowers, and her hair is like jet black. It's long too, it's about to her mid back, and it's all kind of every strand is in place, and just the very beginnings of, you can see crow's feet on her eyes. Just that's the only sign of age that you really see. She's probably in her like mid 40s, but her face is kind of that handsome beauty. She's not necessarily like the most elegantly beautiful person. And you can tell, and maybe Morello, you can tell this, and Vi too, obviously, the two of you can tell this, maybe more than the other women who've probably never done anything in their lives besides, sleep with their husbands and produce babies. But she walks with an air of someone who has... what's the best way to describe this? She walks with an air of someone who has done more things in her life than most. It's like an air of experience and confidence that she just exerts throughout the entire room as soon as she enters. Regardless, she cuts a very imposing figure for anyone who may, be nervous about the situation they're in currently. And yeah, she is exactly what a lady of the realm should look like, and all other ladies of the realm aspire to be what she is currently. Which is somewhat a little bit different from when we met her husband, or we didn't meet him, but when we shot a crossbow through his window. He was... I mean,
Chester did that.
Right. He was a little bit more kind of rugged, rough around the edges kind of count. His beard was a little bit unkempt, and, his hair was kind of straggly and kind of a mess and out of control, like just barely pulled back. And yeah, if you were to see them, like, maybe you picture in your mind, seeing them stand next to each other, they would definitely look like very different people. So I think that you kind of get the impression, too, maybe from that if there were ever a woman that holds a lot of power in this city, it's her. If... Yeah, she is probably the unseen hand behind the count's, position. But, so, that is as she enters, and it's all very dramatic, and, if we were to be the audience, we would hear, like, kind of the tense, almost dramatic music playing, with, like, slight undertones of, like, the tinkly flute sounds. I'm going to spray my cat with a water bottle as soon as I see her, but she's currently out of sight.
I love kitters.
You're so mean to your cat.
I sprayed it into the area and she stopped.
Sure you do.
So yeah, that's kind of what we witness. And everyone, like, in the room does, like, either a polite curtsy or a bow or whatever as she enters, and I assume that the two of you follow suit.
Absolutely.
Obviously everyone except Lady Sylar.
Right.
She's just sitting on her throne, and probably that maybe is, like, what breaks the air. Like, this kind of, like, awkward, like, she's standing there and hasn't addressed anybody yet, but everybody's, like, not sure what to do. You just hear the ding, 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 as Lady Sylar rings her bell for more wine to be brought out. And at that point, like, the whole crowd of people, like, burst back into what they're doing. Yeah, basically. Except, yeah, I guess just as badass.
So good.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what occurs. And so now, like, you can see that the other women in the room are not necessarily lining up, but they are, like, as Lady Appleton approaches them, they cut off whatever they're doing and they give that polite, like, curtsy or bow again, and they introduce themselves and, they talk for a brief moment, and it seems like Lady Appleton is kind of making her rounds around the group. And so, do you guys just kind of...
Vi starts giving her pep talk.
Right, yeah. So, like, as you see this happening, like, it's clear, like, she's going to meet everybody in the room. You're not going to avoid that.
Yeah, and when she gets, like, ever, like, closer, you, like, try to, like, pep talk Morella, but you can see the wine glass in her hand is shaking.
Right. That's good.
So I think Vi takes the wine glass from your hand, and she's done playing nice. I think Vi has tried the, like, kind and generous, which is hard for her, and, like, kind of, like, punches her in the arm as discreetly as she can, and she goes, "Lady Fairheart, you need to get it together. This is the most important lady in this room, and you need to make nice. Do you understand?" And she, like, makes eye contact with her and is, like, military vibe.
Yeah. You do the pinch, the mother pinch on the back of the arm.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And, like, for most, that would phase most people. But you see Morella, like, she doesn't, like, wince in pain at all, but she just looks at you and she's like, "Thank you. I needed that."
Cool.
She goes, "You're welcome," and then just, like, steps behind her.
Right, yeah.
Because I assume she's coming over at this point.
Back. Yeah, so I think that while that's going on, in fact, I think that you see Lady Appleton makes up to Lady Sylar, and she actually embraces Lady Sylar, like, actually in a hug, which is a little bit out of place, but age does make a difference in this world a little bit. Like, your elders are to be respected, and so it may just be a sign of showing that. And so you see Lady Sylar kind of notion in your direction, like the direction of you two. And Lady Appleton turns, and the expression on her face is completely blank. It's unreadable. And yeah, she looks back at Lady Sylar and just nods, and then she continues making her rounds. And then, yeah, eventually she comes over to you. And she says, my dear Lady Fairheart, it is a pleasure to see you again.
Morella like clears her throat and she like nods and she's like, it is a pleasure to meet you as well. I'm honored that you have me here.
She nods. She says, "Oh, my dear, it has clearly been too many years. We've met once before. I did attend a gala once. You were but 3, I think."
Yeah, and like maybe she just kind of like goes a little silent and doesn't like give a response, and she's like, I don't think I would remember that. It was a long time ago, and I was young.
Yes. And she kind of does the like over the shoulder, very slight not like look, and she goes, "And Lady Thorn, I presume?"
Lady, she just bows very deep,
Sure,
trying to look as inconspicuous as possible.
Sure. And she gives like the polite nod, and she says to you, Morella, she says, "Will you join me in a glass of wine?"
She nods and she's like, that would be just fine.
And as if summoned from the nether hell, a servant appears almost instantly with a platter of drinks, and she takes one and you take one, and you give like the little up motion with the glass, and you take a sip, and she says to you, Morella, she says, I knew your mother.
She like as like she's about to like take a sip, she stops and then like pulls the glass away, and she's like, you did?
She was a remarkable woman.
So I've heard.
One that I admire, and I would hope that her offspring would aspire to be just like her.
Exactly. Yes. Of course.
She nods and she says, "How is your father as of these days? It has been some time since I've seen him."
My father as well. He is doing quite well as Count of Tabelheim.
We did receive word that there were some issues in Tabelheim about
What issues
4
do you
months
mean?
ago. Something in reference to giants?
Morella gets like probably like an actual like smirk on her face as she knows exactly what it is, but she's not going to tell this lady, and she's like, "Oh, yes, I think I do remember parts of it. I think we had some trouble, but a merry band of heroes dealt with it."
Yes, that's what they said as much. 'Tis fortuitous, this merry band of heroes. Do you know what has
That they
become
were.
of them?
No, I do not, unfortunately. And she gets like a slightly like sorrowful,
Sure.
like sight on her face, but she quickly tries to hide it.
And I think that she goes, well, regardless, I am pleased that you could be in attendance. I understand it that there was a fellow in your company, a ambassador from Kislev, yes?
Ah, yes, Master Petrov.
Ah, yes.
Wonderful ambassador.
I've heard good things about him. Tis
He's a
shame
very
this
smart
is-
man.
'Tis a shame this is reserved for the women. I would have liked to have meet him.
Well, perhaps another time then.
Perhaps. Anyway, I believe dinner is soon. And yeah, you can see that like hors d'oeuvres have been brought out and like set on those like high top tables. And you see that there is a Lady Sylar's like speaking with a servant, and the servant runs back, and then Farron, from your perspective, the door opens and a servant walks in, and you were just kind of sauntering around, doing what you do, and the servant comes up and he goes, "Mister, the lady thinks it's time for you to begin performing now."
Aye, I'll get my stuff together.
He nods and runs off to do whatever he does. So Farron, what are you going to perform? Like, the ladies would definitely just be happy with some background music for what they're doing, or are you going to take a more active role in, like, the attempt to, entertain them actively?
No, I think I'll at least start with just very basic backgrounds. I don't want to certainly draw attention to our dear lady by the company she's keeping.
Sure. Yeah. So you get together. What instruments are you bringing to this accord? Hopefully not your not your bagpipes. Yeah.
No, not my bagpipes. It was a toss-up, but I decided against it.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I've got my simple quote-unquote lute.
Yep.
So
and
yeah.
Your ukulele maybe.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. So you enter into the ballroom and nobody announces you. But definitely you're getting looks like you're the only man in the room.
Yeah.
And yeah, you begin playing and like it's clear that like the whole room takes on a new life. Where before it was kind of just idle chit chat and introductions and like did you hear gossip talk? Now it's more kind of a lively atmosphere, and a lot of the women have had quite a few drinks at this point, so they are more inclined to kind of bob their heads with the music, or there are probably a couple who are like doing a tone like a silent rendition maybe of a song that you're playing, Farron. But yeah, overall, I think that you add you breathe a new life and kind of interrupt the dull monotony that was occurring in the room.
Sure.
So with that,
everyone relax a bit.
Right, yeah. With that, everyone is eating hors d'oeuvres and having a generally good time. And we fly out the window and we zoom in at somewhere else in the city where Chester is.
Oh God.
So Chester, you're wandering the streets alone, and you're just kind of hanging out. Roll me a perception check.
God.
Cool. It is nighttime, so you don't have disadvantage. Don't worry. Technically, it's nighttime. It's close enough to nighttime. And so you see that there's like a bunch of guards like lighting torches, and the city's starting to light up for the night. And you hear there are some some taverns with their doors kind of open, trying to be as inviting as possible. And I think your perception check gets you, because a 12 is generally enough. To get you you see that there are a few stable boys who are like kind of huddled in the corner of a building, and they're doing that thing that kids do where they're trying to hide something, but they haven't really learned how to do it yet, so they're really bad at it. And you see them, they're like, yeah, right, exactly, Vi. So they're like huddled down in the corner, like you hear like snickering and maybe like a little bit of laughing. Do you approach that situation, or you just continue on your path?
I totally sneak up on that.
Sure, yeah.
Little group of boys.
You don't even need to roll for it.
Jesus out of them.
Yeah, you don't even need to roll for it. You can totally just like creep up behind them. So you get up behind them and they haven't noticed you. What do you do?
I try to see what they're kind of trying to hide there.
So it's clear like they are, there is, on the ground, there is a bird who appears to have flown into a building or hurt itself in some way, and the boys are like, they're like with sticks, like pushing it around, and generally playing with it.
So I'm gonna, how many boys are there?
There's 3. They're all like, between 6 and 10.
Oh, so they're all like really...
No, yeah, they're young kids. They're not like, teenagers.
Okay. Is there any like just stick nearby?
Sure. Or it's sure.
I'm going to hit one of them on the head and scald them.
Sure, yeah. So you pick up your stick and you slap him on one of the head, and he jumps, he falls forward, not because you hit him, but because he's shocked, and the rest of the boys tumble backwards, and they the other two run away, and the one that you hit on the head, he's rubbing you back, and he's like, ah, what was that for?
I said to him, what are you doing with that poor little bird there, huh? Why are you guys poking it with the stick?
It's we were just playing with it. Didn't need to hit me.
That's not playing there, little boy. You should be careful.
He looks up at you and sees you for the first time, and he's like, you're mean. And he gets up and he runs away.
Well, that was a nice compliment. I go down to pick up the bird and see if I can figure out. Yeah, it's like a sparrow of some sort. And it looks like its wing is hurt, not broken, but clearly injured in some way that it's not able to fly. Mm-hmm. And at this point, it's kind of in shock, so it just allows you to pick it up and doesn't really do anything. Okay. And obviously, I'd have a little bit of cloth or a bandage or something. Is there any way I can bandage up its wing?
Sure. Yeah, you can use first aid, right? Roll a medicine check to see how proficient you are at bandaging its wing. Actually, hold on. I'm sorry. It actually probably wouldn't be medicine. It'd probably be animal handling. If you want to roll animal handling, you totally can do that.
It's probably the same, but
yeah, there you go. You rolled a 15. So I think that maybe at some as a child, maybe you fixed up another bird or something, and you're able to
mean to people.
You're able to kind of put it back into place, and it seems like maybe it was dislocated. Maybe that's what it was, and you pop it back into place, and the bird it seems to know what you're doing to some degree, and it thanks you, what do you do with it after that? It can't fly yet. It'll still have to heal over time, but you have significantly sped up that process.
Okay. If that's the case, I'm just going to tuck it into my jacket, my warm jacket, and go into the attic of the inn that I'm at.
Sure. Yeah. So you tuck it into your jacket and you go into the inn, and there's this one is it's a little bit rowdy. There's some people gambling with some dice maybe in the corner, and there's a couple serving women. You see a serving woman slap a guy for grabbing her. So it's not the best neighborhood, if the kids were any judge. But yeah, and then you can totally just go up the stairs and get into the attic, and no problem.
All right, and then I'm just gonna set up the bed and relax.
Sure. Yeah. So you roll out your there's a window actually that looks out and it's that perfect looking out into the moonlight with the stars kind of speckled, and you just lean up against something and roll down. You have a camping roll or whatever, it doesn't matter. And the bird it probably jumps out of your jacket and is lying on your chest, and kind of snuggles up and is sleeping.
Awesome. This is a great day.
Bird friend, yay!
Bird friend.
This is a great day.
Chester begins to think to himself, I am so going to hold this over Vi, and he also lays down for bed.
Sure. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, and I think there's this moment, probably back in the Galleon and the Knoll, where Hannibal and Arcadia have been talking for a while, and they kind of look at each other and are have you seen Chester lately? And Arcadia goes, no, I thought you were watching him. And then we just that's it. That's the whole scene. And then we go back to the tea party real quick. So you guys have migrated out into the courtyard, and you're sitting at the tables, and dinner is being served. And maybe for the first time, you guys notice that it appears that Lady Appleton has brought a retinue of guards, or maybe she didn't have a choice, because in the edges of the courtyard, you can see there's a couple of like sentries patrolling like the gates, or like the fence, right? That's along there. And Farron, you notice that too, because so during dinner time, again, it's probably going to be more like background music, but when the dessert course comes out, that's when you're kind of expected to actually do a performance, right? You're to entertain, not just provide ambiance. Yeah, and Morella, I think you are seated, you and Lady Thorn are seated 2 seats away from the head of the table, and at the head of the table there's this odd thing going on where I think Lady Appleton is not seated at the head of the table. She's seated to the right of the table, and Lady Sylar is actually seated at the head of the table. It's not generally uncommon, but it's clearly a nod from Lady Appleton to, this is Lady Sylar's house. I'm not going to come in and, exert my power here. She's nice enough to let us use this place, so, she can kind of do what she wants. But yeah, and you guys, there's 2 people in between you guys and Lady Appleton. And dinner is delicious. It's absolutely extravagant and delicious. And the conversation kind of turns, because all the pre-dinner conversation was more along the lines of, you won't believe what my husband did last night, and along the lines of, we have this really cute stable boy now, and along the lines of...
Yeah, things that women talk about.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
God.
Yeah, exactly. But as the dinner conversation kind of turns, it turns more into a... because these, like I said, there's kind of 2 groups here. There's the group that are activists and, have a bit of power, and then there's the group that are kind of the pacifists and hey, my husband buys me fancy stuff and that's cool. And whereas the previous conversation was probably the pacifist kind of conversation, it has turned more towards a little bit more political. And there's definitely probably some conversations that you guys have been involved in where they're talking about things that are going on, probably one woman, her name is probably Marbleshade, Lady Marbleshade. She more than likely brought up the fact that her husband has been gone for so long, and he never tells them where she's been, and you find out that her husband is actually one of the actual count's leading lords, literally sits on the council for the count, and she says that they were sent down the Silk Road to the east to deal with some troubles downriver, or upriver technically, up the River Aver, and so Morella and Vi, you guys know that's your intended direction of travel. So you guys can insert yourself into that conversation if you so choose, because it's kind of a general conversation going on around the table.
I think that Vi would kind of elbow Morella, because I don't think Vi is in a position to speak out of turn at this sort of dinner. So speak when spoken to kind of a thing. But I think every time that Vi thinks that there's something interesting, she elbows Morella to try to get into the conversation.
Probably, yeah. Cool. Actually, I just realized what time it is. Do you guys want to take a little break here before we jump into this conversation?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah,
yes.
Cool.
Yes, please.
So let's be back at 8:10 in 12 minutes, and we'll get started again. And
8:20.
Chester, you think about how I'm probably going to mess with you in the upcoming 2 hours.
Think about bird names for your cute bird.
Yeah, you should think about bird names. No problem.
I already have a bird name because it's not actually a bird, it's a dragon. We all know that. So, All right, see you guys in like 10 minutes, 5 minutes.